I hosted a panel of young conservatives from various different viewpoints to debate the matter of U.S. intervention in Iran. This conversation was certainly interesting. I had four young conservatives on this: Wynton, Lily, Van, and Myzell, to debate this matter. They are very well versed in foreign policy, and they went into a very deep conversation that I think you guys will enjoy. For context, on February 28th, the United States and Israel launched a surprise attack on the state of Iran, targeting everything from energy infrastructure to nuclear sites, military bases, and even the Iranian high command, killing the longtime reigning Ayatollah Khamenei. In response, Iran launched multiple retaliatory strikes, primarily with drones and missiles, many of which targeting neighbor states that likely had no involvement in the surprise attack, causing many to fear of a wider regional conflict. So far, 13 U.S. service members have been killed and many more have been injured. Iran, on the other hand, has reported over 1,500 deaths and around 20,000 injuries. Because the situation is ongoing, the future of Iran remains unclear. So, some basic ground rules. I just want you guys all to respect one another, be open to everyone's opinion, and if need be, I will jump in to keep the discussion moving. And also, I want to bring up, if anybody has a point that they want to bring up regarding something that someone else said, you will have the opportunity. Just simply let me know when you want to do so we can keep things running smoothly. So, first off, I just want everybody to briefly state your name, who you are, and whether or not you support American intervention in Iran. We'll start with Wynton.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Gino. Thank you for having me. My name is Wynton. I am a United States Marine, and I'm also a political commentator. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I am pro-intervention. I've actually been in favor of intervention for quite some time now, and I'm very happy to see it finally happening.
Great. Thank you. Lily?
Thank you for having me, Gino. My name is Lily Farrell. I am an America First content creator here. I'm also the founder of the National Revival, and I am not pro-war for in Iran.
Okay. Myzell?
My name is Myzell, and I'm the CEO of TTB Media, and I am pro the intervention in Iran.
Great, thank you. And finally, Van.
Hey, I'm Van LeMay. I'm a student pilot, president of Turning Point USA at West Michigan Aviation Academy, one of the largest nationwide, member of the Air Force Auxiliary, and a leader of Elevate Network. So what is Elevate Network, you may ask? It is really where media is going to be at the next frontier. A lot of traditional systems, especially in entertainment, have become pretty one-sided, and there's a huge gap for content that feels grounded in truth and common sense. Elevate was founded by my buddy Blake Mydell, a fellow pilot and media entrepreneur who saw that shift early and wanted to build something different, something that actually empowers creators and gives audience a real alternative. We're still early, but that's the exciting part. People can actually get in the ground level right now. If you're interested, please go watch elevate.watch. And my stance on Iran is simple. We need, as a civilization at the frontier of Western civilization, to power through and push out that society, and so we need to do what it takes.
Great, thank you. So, to get right into it, President Trump and other senior officials have deemed this operation necessary for national security. Do you agree that this intervention was necessary for our nation's security? And let's start with Wynton.
100%, I do believe that an intervention in Iran has been necessary. It has always been necessary because Iran has been the number one provocateur of a lot of this instability in the Middle East for the longest time now, and they have been the main funder of a lot of proxies and a lot of terrorist cells and organizations in the region. And unfortunately, many other administrations were not able to take care of this issue, or they did not have the courage to be able to do that. And so our current president is taking the steps necessary that most presidents kept on skipping and kept on avoiding, and he's putting an end to the regime that is causing all problems in the Middle East. Iran is currently the most powerful military force in that region, and so we need to eliminate that to eliminate further problems and other sleeper cells down the road.
Thank you for that. So, how about Lily?
Wynton, I would like to start more so with a question for you, just to kind of get your stance on this. I heard you say that you were a Marine. I'm assuming you're active or in the military currently.
Correct.
Correct. I know personally my father was a veteran in the Operation Iraqi Freedom during that war, and many veterans during that war also agree that we shouldn't have been in Iraq. Many of the Afghanistan veterans agree that we shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. Many of the Vietnam veterans agree that we shouldn't have been in Vietnam either. And I'm just wondering, as an active member of our military, do you think that the Iran war will follow in the same steps further down the line of the veterans and the people fighting and the Americans dying for this will kind of agree that we probably shouldn't have been in Iran either?
That's a great question. Firstly, I think I should mention that I don't speak on behalf of the Department of War. It is not within my rank or pay to be able to do that. All of my opinions are my own. And second, I do agree with you, right, that a lot of veterans from many different time periods will eventually come to the conclusion that war is brutal and it's supposed to be that way. Nobody said that war is, a great thing. It comes with a very expensive and a very hefty price. But the common consensus that I've experienced during my time here is that everybody's excited for this. And I'm referring to the young service members around my age, right, 18 to 20, 21, who want to go see action, or want to go see war. That's just the plain reality of it. And this is not to glorify war at all, but it's to say that people have pride in serving their country. People understand that they have been a problem for multiple years, for decades at this point, right? You look at 9/11, you look at the Gulf War in the 1990s, you look at every single problem we have in the Middle East, and everything points back to Iran. And the reason why is because Iran funds these proxies. You look at ISIS, Al Qaeda, Hezbollah, all of these other smaller factions, that are dominantly Muslim or that have some sort of radical Islamic ideology. They receive their funding from Iran because Iran is big enough and powerful enough to fund them. And so I do agree that it does come to a cost. It's not going to look good on papers and statistics, and it's especially not going to look good on the news when you see that people's lives are being lost. But when you look at it in the long run, in the long term of things, it is extremely necessary that we eliminate this regime entirely so we can put an end to the cancer that has been ridding the American taxpayer dollar of trillions of dollars for the past nearly 50 years.
And do you believe that there will actually be a regime change? I mean, I think we said the same thing when we went into Iraq, and I think we sacrificed $2 trillion and thousands and probably more of American lives, all for the call for a regime change. When we went to Afghanistan, it was like I think a 20-year war or something like that, trillion spent, and they called for a regime change. There was no change. Do you believe that we could actually change Iran? We saw during the attacks that we successfully targeted and eliminated majority of their government, and they put new government in. We successfully eliminated them too. I think that shows the fact that even after that, they would not cease the war and the attacking. That maybe we aren't going to change them without a full on ground invasion. Would you be in support of putting thousands of troops on the ground?
Well, to answer your first question, to make this clear, when I rose my right hand to swear an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, I was swearing that oath to the Constitution, and then I was also swearing to follow every order from my commander in chief. In this case, President Trump. And I've had the pleasure of working on behalf of this man. I fully support him what he's doing. President Trump isn't other presidents, right? When you look at Iraq, first of all, we shouldn't have been in Iraq. President Trump has made this very clear. We shouldn't have been there, right? The origin of our enemies in Iraq were based off in other countries, such as Pakistan. We should have attacked the root cause, but George Bush and other Democratic presidents at that time didn't do that, right? They continued to waste trillions of dollars in those areas, and they were incompetent. Biden was even further incompetent, right? We know that from 2016 to 2020, when Trump was in office, not a single soldier for 18 months, not a single soldier or Marine died, right? Representative Wesley Hunt of Texas was talking about this in an interview with a reporter, right? President Trump was talking with the leader of the Taliban, and he has a translator in the room, and Donald Trump takes out a picture out of his coat and shows it to the leader of the Taliban and is like, hey, if you touch a single American soldier, I'm gonna kill you. And here's your house. I have it right in front of you, right? When you make these kind of moves, people don't mess with us because they know we're standing on business, and this is sort of the legacy and policy that our current president has. And so I think it would be kind of unfair to compare this administration with others. And don't forget, we're still trying to clean up the mess left by the previous administration, which was a lot of destruction. You saw what happened in 2021, where we had 13 Marines, a corpsman, and a few soldiers die, right? And this was the first time we've had a mass casualty event like that ever since Trump left office. And so I don't think we're going to have a ground invasion. I personally don't. I don't think it's necessary. And even if we do, I think we're going to crush the Iranians. I think they're about to find out why we spend so much money in the military-industrial complex.
When just to clarify, George Bush was a Republican president.
Sure, George Bush fundamentally and on paper he was a Republican, but his
I can take the argument that he's definitely a Rhino.
Sure.
But just to clarify, he is a Republican.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, Lily. If you want to follow up with anything, go ahead.
Obviously, I think you made a very good point, and I think taking like one very strong side in this argument is not a good thing. Like obviously I'm not very pro war in any sense. I'm very America first in the sense, but I think it's more of a 70-30. I think I can sit here and like understand the fact that Iran is in somewhat a threat to us and the Islamic extremists is a threat to us, but I think for me personally, I don't think a war right now is in our best interest. More so for the American people. Majority of the American people that I talk to and a lot of the America First people I think aren't in support for a war in Iran. I think a large majority of our country isn't in support for this war, which I think might be a problem.
Lily, on your point of America First, I think that obviously, like, being America First is pushing forward American exceptionalism internally within the United States, but I also think it comes down to also actually sharing those values across the world and promoting freedom across the world. And so I don't think that, like, necessarily being American First means that you're against any sort of foreign policy.
Would you say that you would think this is more an American war or more an Israel war?
Well, I mean, the Ayatollah has made direct attacks to the United States. And yes, this is a war that is benefiting our partner Israel. But at the same time, I think you can truly take away Israel out of the equation. And this is a beneficial war for Western civilization. What I mean by that is the British, the French, the Spaniards, all of these different countries in NATO, in our alliances, are benefiting from these radical Islamic regimes being taken down. And the other thing, too, is appeasing a country like this has been proven throughout history to not be a solution. If you want to look back at history, let's look at World War II. When you have a dictator that you're appeasing, eventually it's going to cause a conflict. And I think that maybe it's premature now. I can take that argument, and it might be strange to us that we're doing this now, but I think that President Trump realizes that this war is inevitable, and so therefore it must be carried out at some point.
Absolutely, and I agree with that as well. I mean, Iran has chanted industry to death to Israel and then death to America. They call us the Great Satan, and they have wanted to get nuclear weapons for a long time now. And we've been able to stop them because for multiple years we hacked into their nuclear facilities and then we bombed them a few months ago, but now they're still building missiles and having a space program. So we want to take them out while they're small and weak and insignificant now rather than when they are a bigger power later. The reason that we haven't overthrown, say, North Korea is because they have nuclear weapons, and even though, sure, they only have a few, and we obviously win that war, they wouldn't exist. We wouldn't want to have the threat of nuclear weapons come onto our shores. I'd ask, like, what percentage chance would you want them to have nuclear weapons? Like, I'd say 0% chance. They shouldn't have them. There's no reason that they need nuclear weapons. There's no reason that they need nuclear power. They have oil that they could use. They have other sources of power generation that they could use if they wanted to, have some sort of electricity infrastructure. There's not really any benefit to allowing this regime to exist for the United States.
And on that note, you mentioned nuclear weapons and Iran possibly acquiring them. You said you don't want them at all, and many do agree with you. But there has been a lot of speculation on really whether or not Iran actually was trying to obtain nuclear weapons. Or my question for you, and for everybody else is, did Iran really pose an imminent threat to the U.S. and its allies? Let's start with Wynton first.
I would say yes, and my concern is not even nuclear weapons. Okay, my nuclear weapons is the least of my concern because I know that my American fleet, from my personal experience, I know that my American military is more than capable of deterring it. The whole war right now in Iran is not just a war against Iran. It's a war against the very threat. I believe personally the biggest threat in America right now. And this is the radicalization of Islam. Putting aside the Ayatollah or putting aside ISIS or Al Qaeda, let's just look at the core fundamentalism of Islam. Okay, it literally mandates to go out and kill anybody that does not agree with them religiously. Okay, that is their mandate. That is what they believe wholeheartedly by the soul. That is what their men, women, and children are raised with. So when you're in an Islamic country and you have a military, well, guess what? When you go out and fight other countries, you're gonna go fight on the basis of what you read in the Quran, which says to go and kill people who don't believe in what you say. Which is why I'm saying Iran is a cancer. And I also truly believe that a lot of the America First crowd, and I do believe that there is, don't get me wrong, I am totally America First, but I do believe there is an American First uni party that's being formed, notably by a lot of popular streamers and sub-popular political commentators out there, like James Fishback, who's running for governor of Florida, who, by the way, I'm great friends with James Fishback. I think he's wonderful. Or you have people who I don't often agree with, like Nick Fuentes, or, this other guy's name, I forget oftentimes. But these people who say, well, we shouldn't be here in the first place. Well, the problem is a lot of these individuals don't come up with solutions, and I think it's pretty concerning. Like, I want to see America be put first, but that doesn't mean America can't restrict itself, right? We learned this very quickly in World War II. I don't know if any of y'all remember this, but in World War II, America's initial plan was not to go and fight the Japanese. Our initial plan was not to fight the Germans. Our initial plan was we're going to focus on our own country, we're going to mind our own business, and we're going to let the rest of the world fight. That did not turn out that aged very poorly. Okay, with Pearl Harbor and later on with the Germans directly declaring war on the United States. Okay, we tried to keep our own business, but they ended up attacking us first, and then we went and we attacked them, right? And so I wish America could live in this sort of fantasy where we just keep to ourselves and we don't wage war on other countries. But the harsh reality is that's not possible because other countries want what we have, they're jealous of what we have, and don't forget, China and Russia are the two big other superpowers, aside from the United States, encouraging Iran and all these other Islamic proxies to go against us because they are a cancer in our heel. They will continue to pester us, and this is only ammunition for them if we don't react properly with force.
Yeah, exactly. Islamic terrorism is the major threat. It's the largest threat that we have in America that's facing America today. America first does not mean America only. It means that we act in the interest of what America needs. And sure, I mean, I've seen some of the videos of these America first commentators saying that we should draw back from the world and stop funding these other countries as well. But if the United States were to draw back from the world and take out all the military bases that we have around the world and pull back away from Iran, those spaces will still exist. They don't just disappear anymore. And other more immoral powers such as Russia, China, and Iran are going to come in and try to control those regions. And we don't want that happening because as nice as it may seem, the United States cannot withdraw from the world. What happens in the Middle East and in other countries does directly affect us. As well, Iran has been trying to close the Strait of Hormuz, which is kind of like the Panama Canal of the Middle East. Lots of oil goes through there as well, and because the Strait of Hormuz is being closed, because the U.S. Navy usually guarantees freedom of passageway for ships in that region, we make sure that it stays open. Because that strait is being closed, the oil prices have risen, and if it stays closed or it's under Iranian leadership, then they would be in a place to negotiate with the United States, and we don't want to have to negotiate with these radical Islamic terrorists. that hate us and want us dead. I mean, they chant in the streets, "Death to America," and it, like Wynton said, it is in the holy book. It's in the Quran that they must have jihad, which is declaring war on the infidels who will not convert to Islam. So that is what is in their ideology, in their core ideology. They are a theocracy that has weapons, and we don't want any of that coming in the Strait of Hormuz, in the Middle East, and on our shores.
I mean, to elaborate on oil too, Tech Boy, here's the deal. This war is actually going to help our oil industry. That's a reality of this war.
Yeah.
Uh, War drives up the military industrial complex, and having such oil shortages in the Middle East is actually going to make the American oil industry a valuable asset to the rest of the world. And the war, this is a harsh reality of war, but it actually drives up the economy. And we're not seeing that right now. I know someone might jump to like, okay, yeah, gas prices are super high right now. There's some issues with, cost of foods, different things like that. But at the end of the day, if you look back in history, with a little bit of time, the economy actually improves in wartime efforts. One thing I will say, though, on what you and Winton were saying is I think that you guys are a little bit over exaggerating how imminent their threat was with nuclear weapons. I definitely think that it was a threat, but I do think that this was more of a social war. I think that we have had some people on the right that are extremely pro for the war being a little false in their accusations on the Ayatollah's nuclear power. I truly don't think that they were that close to nuclear power. I
Oh
think that
well,
they were close to enriching, sure,
yeah.
but I think that they had a lot of engineering to go. And I think that although I support this war, we have to be honest on the reality of it.
Absolutely.
Well,
I wasn't claiming that they would have a nuclear weapon within like 3 weeks or 6 months if we didn't go in and strike. I was saying that they could be creating nuclear weapons. We want to take out that capability as fast as possible. We want to set them back decades. We don't want to wait until they have a weapon, but maybe they don't have a rocket to have to go into war because, they could have a secret rocket that we don't know about. I mean, we don't want to wait all the way until they have the bomb built and then go nuke them as well because once they have that one or two nuclear weapons, then they can use that as intense leverage to get what they want to maybe dominate the region and then dominate some sort of trade agreement with the United States. We want to remain in control of our own destiny. We want to remain the sole superpower on Earth, and we don't want to have anyone using nuclear weapons to threaten us. In the 1940s, when we invented the atomic bomb, for a brief period in time, we were the only country on Earth that had that capability, and it would be a much better world if we were still the only country on Earth that had those capabilities. But unfortunately, they got leaked to the Russians, so of course we had to give some of that over to the British and the French, etc. But we want to keep the number of countries that have nuclear weapons at the number it is now or lower. We don't need anyone else even getting close to that kind of capability.
Actually, in a way, disagree, Tech Boy. I think that nuclear weapons have actually created a more safe world.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this might
I
be
agree.
this might be a little bit of a far-reached claim, but I think that countries having nuclear weapons has created a ceasefire across the world. It's created a standstill because we're too scared to bomb the Russians. The Russians are too scared to bomb us. The distinction that you have to make here is this: the Iranians are not reasonable, and I think that they've proven that today.
Yeah.
President Trump proposed a ceasefire in Iran. I think it was for 5 days, and immediately the Iranians attacked Tel Aviv. They're not trustworthy, and it's hard. I think in different circumstances, you could take a far less intervention take if you were dealing with someone that was reasonable. These people aren't reasonable, and you can't reason with unreasonable people. It's simple. So I think that we have to do what we have to do because they will not make deals with us. They're not going to be reasonable. It's much like actually the Japanese in World War II, where you have to do large measures because they're not going to agree to peaceful treaties. They're almost uncivilized. I hate to say that, but it's true.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree that nuclear weapons make the world a much safer place. But the problem is that the Islam is a self-destructive ideology. They are the people who flew planes through our buildings. They're the people who strap suicide vests on themselves because they believe that if you die fighting a holy war against the infidels, that you will get an automatic bid into heaven. The other countries that have nuclear weapons, such as Russia and China, they're Christian-ish or irreligious, so they don't have this radical ideology. That's why these Muslim countries, in particular, should not be allowed to have anything close to a nuclear weapon or nuclear capabilities. But I do agree with the statement that you were saying there as well. The Japanese is a good example of this. I mean, they had the kamikaze pilots flying in World War II. They were flying literal planes into our ships during Pearl Harbor. And they committed so many atrocities that even Germany told them to tone it down, which is, I mean, that's insane. So these are the kind of people that we are dealing with. But even worse, because while the Japanese were driven by loyalty to the emperor, the sun god, the Islamist Iran is driven by loyalty to Allah, and they would welcome getting nuked or fighting in the streets against the United States because they believe that they'd all go to heaven when they die doing this as well. But another problem that we're seeing here is that they're also using the plight of these people who are, self-destructive as some sort of, we're getting genocided. We're, trying to manipulate the mainstream media into thinking that it's this, big bad thing that's happening to them, while the people on the ground are actually out in the streets protesting, celebrating, that are happy for this intervention that we have done.
I mean, I think this is something that Lily's going to bring up, and I feel like we should actually hear a little bit more from Lily. But would you say, and I'm not necessarily making this claim, but would you say that there are certain people that are pinning Islam as the sole problem in our world, where there's larger and more economically powerful sources causing problems throughout our world and that have influence?
Are you asking me or Lily?
Well, I'm just asking everyone in a way, but
I
I
mean,
think Lily probably is going to say something on
could
this.
you be more
So,
specific in terms of who you're referring to by economic
I mean,
power?
I think that it's hard to specify, but I think that we can all acknowledge that there is an oligarchy. There is economic powers ununderstood to us, and there is powers that are controlling our media. They're controlling our governments. They're controlling everything around us. And I think that we have to understand, and this is a lot of this is actually coming from Charlie Kirk and some of his comments on Iran, which is we have to understand that war like this is much bigger than a two-sided thing. It isn't Iran versus the US. It's the whole world's involved, and there are powers involved in the private sector and governments that are also influencing this war. And I think that we have to be able to make that distinction, because when we think it's so night and day, I think you truly don't get to see the entire side of everything.
I mean, irregardless of whoever's in power, irregardless of the influences that come in, the most powerful country on this earth will forever be, well, probably not forever because we'll have to see how long that goes, but at least for the
The
next
US,
few decades
100%.
will be the United States.
100%.
So
100.
irregardless of economical movements or people that come in, people are going to come in and out, people are going to come and die, right, and move on, and they're going to get replaced eventually. America's still going to be there, and America's still going to be at least the sole dictator, the sole decider of Iran's fate, or most countries' fate. Now, they can have some sort of implication in certain instances, but I still believe this relies on the United States. Like, America literally had a shake, be like,
100%.
we need you to come to the Strait of Hormuz. We need you to send your navies and aircraft carriers and strike groups to that region to come and help our MEUs and our navies and our Marines there, because we can't do this alone. Like, we are supporting you guys, and we need your help over there. And so,
I mean, there's other.
yeah.
Sorry, there's other forces like involved, such as Russia and China. They're backing the Iranians.
Right.
Like, getting into this conflict is much deeper. Is all I'm trying to
I
discern.
want to say Russia and China are involved. And do they
They back the Iranians.
socially they socially and probably to an extent economically support the Iranians, but not to the extent that we think. Because China has already publicly said they're not going to help Iran. They already made that clear. They don't want to, because they know what America's capable of. They've seen what we've did in Venezuela. They've seen what we did to Iran not too long ago before we've actually declared, or I guess informally declared war on them. They're not going to get involved. Now there may be some behind the scenes sort of support, but they're not going to directly be like, hey, we're sending our navies and our troops there to directly confront American troops. They're not going to do that, and probably won't for a while.
Yeah, absolutely not. But I saw a report saying that China was actually producing some of the missiles that Iran was using. So they are giving them some sort of economic aid and military aid as well, just not boots on the ground or troops, just kind of production, kind of like what the United States does for Ukraine. We're not fighting for them; we do sell them some of their weapons, our weapons to them rather. So that is something that China is doing, and people are saying that if we find out that a Chinese-made missile hits a United States ship, that's going to have some huge problems because we don't want that happening. Don't touch our ships.
I
Yeah.
do have a few
Anybody
things to.
can close off
Oh,
on that. Let's
sorry,
hear from
Gino.
Lily.
I do
No,
have a
you're
few
good.
things to just kind of like ask you guys. I know that a lot of you, I think majority of you here are pro us being involved in Iran. And I think one of my questions would be like, what is your long-term goal of us being involved in Iran? If you want us to have a regime change, who is going to lead Iran? Who is going to take over after this war? And I do, just to touch on the other stuff that you guys were saying about how we don't want such an Islamic extremist country to have nuclear weapons. I in the sense of it, I don't think if Iran was even able to build a nuclear weapon, I'm sure Van, being the aviation person here, could tell us what planes Iran is flying in their military. If their military is not even up to par with anything else in the Middle East, like I'm sure their planes are. I'm not quite sure, but I think they're quite old. Excuse me. If they would be able to
Yeah,
produce a
100%.
nuclear weapon,
Yeah, I
but
mean they're operating with their main actually aviation power was the F-14 Tomcat, which ceased to exist now for them because we've taken away all of that. But to like give you a little summary on the F-14, that is the plane that you would see flying Tom Cruise in the original Top Gun movie. So that's a very old plane. In its day, it was the king of the skies, but now they have outdated technology. Yet, with a nuclear weapon and like nuclear capabilities, you don't need necessarily traditional fixed wing aircraft. You could have missiles, you could have unmanned aerial systems, certain things that are like actually really cheap, to be honest with you. So they did have the ability to move a nuclear weapon. How far? That's debatable. But still, I mean, it's a nuclear weapon. Like 100% they could attack some of our allies and our bases with a nuclear weapon, which
and
it just in general, you don't want to see a nuclear weapon.
no, I think that
And
leads us to.
Lily asked a very. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, you can go if you want.
Oh, I was just gonna say you asked. I think you asked a very important question at the beginning, right? What do you want to see Iran look like long term? And I love that question because we always have to think long term when it comes to economics, when it comes to civics, and when it comes to war, especially. After this discussion is done, I highly encourage you guys to go on YouTube and type up Iran pre Ayatollah and see what it looked like before the Islamic regime came and took over in the 90s and what it looks like today. And the difference is quite frankly astonishing. It is astonishing. We want Iran to go back to what it used to look like in the early 90s before the Islamic extremists took over. That is what we expect from them. And also, this claim, I'm not sure who made this claim, but the claim that Iran does not have munitions or enough weapons to currently pose a threat is completely false. Because let's not forget that for 4 years during the Biden administration, right? Let's even go further than that, right? To Obama. Obama served 2 terms, and he had this disastrous Iran nuclear deal, where we were giving Iran billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. So for 8 years, Iran was building hundreds, probably tens of thousands of missiles, ships, planes, You name it, whatever technology that the Chinese and the Russians gave them, most of Iran's munitions and air defenses are Russian, are Soviet, if we're being completely honest. Okay, Trump came from 2016 to 2020. He reversed that with the Abraham Accords. Okay, and then Biden comes back in, reverses that again. And then for another 4 years, Iran is raking tens of billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars to build their arsenal, their fleet. And that entire conglomeration of corruption established by Democrats is what's backfiring to us. So what's backfiring Americans, right? They are using what we gave them, us Americans, our money. We gave that to them, and they're firing that at us, at Israel, and they're also using it to abuse their own people and establish this very monstrous Islamic regime in that region. So the claim that they don't have enough munitions, I wouldn't quite agree with that. They have to be completely eliminated, right? And I'm gonna land my plane with this: if you have cancer, right? Let's say you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, "Yo, you have cancer on your right foot," but it's very minimal and it's very small. You're not gonna wait till that cancer spreads to your leg and then your knee and then your thigh, right? To be like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna get surgery. I'm actually gonna get this done and get this taken care of." No, you take care of the very problem at the beginning of it. The more we wait and the more we contemplate and be like, they're not a big threat now, we don't really have to do anything yet, they're going to become a bigger problem down the road, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, as technology continues to advance, as more corrupt powers like Russia and China continue to give them money and continue to fund their corrupt regime. It's only going to get worse. So why are we being hesitant? Why not just fix the problem right now and get this over with?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
quickly, Tech Boy, I was just gonna say, on your point of the Abraham Accords, Wynton, I actually think that that's a great answer to Lily's question of a long-term goal. If the viewers or you guys aren't familiar with what the Abraham Accords are, it's a series of agreements that normalizes diplomatic relations between Israel and the US with the rest of the Middle East. These are economic but also military relationships, and it's actually built a very, very peaceful situation between countries such as the UAE and Saudi Arabia with the US and Israel. And I think that if we can promote policies such as the Abraham Accords to be set up for other countries in the Middle East that aren't participating currently in this, it's going to be a net positive. What were you going to say, Tech Boy?
I was going to say, in response to Lily's questions, I don't like to bring up, our allies of the countries in the region because I don't want it to seem like that we're doing this at the behest of other countries, because then you can claim that we should draw out of these regions. So I'm going to frame it in a way that it's only benefits America. Let's assume that Iran cannot figure out how to create a hypersonic missile. They have this quote-unquote space program, which they're obviously trying to use to build a rocket that can then hit the United States. But let's say that they cannot figure out how to do that. If they have this nuclear weapon, they can then use it as some sort of a negotiating chip in the region. They can say, all right, guys, we're going to nuke this area. Maybe they'll nuke the Strait of Hormuz. Maybe they'll nuke some other areas around there that obviously would create a large-scale war that would directly affect the United States. It would affect the oil prices. It would affect a whole bunch of things that go around in that region. Just having a nuclear weapon is a negotiating chip in and of itself. I mean, we have to negotiate with North Korea, not because we're afraid that North Korea could, strike the United States and defeat us in an all-out war. It's just because they have a nuclear weapon, so they are granted some sort of aspect of respect. That's, again, why we also have to negotiate with China and Pakistan and India. They all have nuclear weapons, and they're kind of our allies, kind of not. But that's one of the reasons we haven't really invaded Pakistan, right? They're kind of an ally. Sometimes they're not. But that's one of the reasons we haven't really done anything like that. So we want to be able to limit the amount of countries that have this basically cheat code that can force the United States, the most powerful country in the world, to have to use some sort of unfair negotiations that would directly affect the American people. Now, as for the plan for Iran, I know people talk about the quote-unquote forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Now, what we don't look at here is that in Iraq, their government was gone in 3 weeks. In Afghanistan, we destroyed their military. The problem was that, the Afghanistani people, when we pulled out in 2021, they got run over in like 12 days. They didn't take, we trained you for 20 years. What else did they expect us to do for them? That's the same thing that happened in Vietnam. We trained y'all for 20 years. I mean, what else did you want? And then we also gave them weapons for 2 years after we pulled out. In Iraq, we captured the dictator. We overthrew their government. The problem is that the United States military is good at destroying stuff, blowing stuff up, going in with the planes and taking out the government. It's just not good at building it. So we have to let the Iranian people decide who they want to lead for themselves. But we have to keep America's interest at heart first. So if that means that there's some other Ayatollah that is there, that's fine as long as we keep him under our thumb. There are just, kind of like what we did in Venezuela. We took out Maduro, but we left his vice president there in state. So his administration is still technically there, but she knows that, like, if she doesn't do what we want, then we'll capture her and drag her back to New York in 20 minutes, just like we did him. So maybe we can do something like that with the Iranian new Ayatollah. I mean, they've seen what we've done to them. We blew up the first one, then we took out all of them while they were sitting together at breakfast for some reason, and the other guy is now in a coma, and they showed him on a cardboard head. A few years ago, Israel, just mailed out beepers to everyone and blew everyone up to pieces. So we have to be able to send some sort of message that we will keep them under control to make them make deals that are good for the American people as well. Yes, we care about the Iranian people, and it would be great if they had some sort of democracy in the Middle East. But I'm not saying that we should do some sort of nation building there, because we have to keep America's interests at stake and at heart.
Great. Let's get our finishing thoughts on that. I know Lily looks like she wants to say something, and then let's move on to the next question.
Just quickly, I know that Tech Boy touched on Pakistan, and I do think that if you're going to consider like Iran as a threat, then you need to consider other Muslim countries as a threat too. We know that Pakistan has large arsenals of nuclear weapons, and they're kind of an ally, kind of not. But you need to also look, they're in England and other places like that. A large majority of the Muslim immigrants are coming from Pakistan. And we know that those places have a very large nuclear arsenal. So in the future, in maybe 2040, when they're majority Muslim, and we know that the Muslims are taking over their government and they're turning into a majority Muslim country, are we going to have to go to war with them?
Who? You cut out. Sorry.
England and UK and Britain and Ireland, all these places are being taken
Oh,
over
UK.
by, yeah, UK.
You know, I don't think that, at least within the next 50 years, that England is going to be having some sort of, a Muslim prime minister, a Muslim king. I'm not sure how the nuclear codes work over there, but in the United States, the president alone can do that. I'm not sure if the king can do it. I'm not sure if the prime minister. I'll have to look it up.
Prime Minister. It would be Prime Minister.
Okay.
But, I mean, the thing is, Lily, I think that it's a little asinine to say that the British government's going to be completely taken over by Islam. I mean, I think that there is a massive cultural influence with Islam in the UK, but I don't think that it's going to bleed into, like,
I
the government
I
necessarily. But,
I would disagree. I would disagree completely. I think majority of their health ministers over there are Muslim immigrants. We're seeing it taking over in majority of their government, their parliaments, majority of their population in the next few years will be the white population. There will be a minority. It's the same stuff that we're seeing here in America. And if you're going to make the argument that we need to stop Iran, we need to stop all these people because they're a threat to us, then you need to look at the other countries too.
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I can agree with that, but I think that you have to look at, like, has Sharia law been implemented at a large scale?
Not yet, but I think it
Like
will. I
Muslim.
think they're pushing for that. If you look at down in
And
Texas,
I don't disagree that it's possible. I just don't think that it's near enough yet. But I don't disagree that it's possible. So
I mean, I don't disagree, but we have to look at the data. Is it more likely for Iran to create a nuclear weapon within, say, 10 years, or is it more likely that the United Kingdom falls and becomes a Muslim country in 10 years? I'd say that obviously Iran generating some sort of nuclear weapon in 10 years is far more likely than the UK becoming some sort of a Muslim nation. So, and right now we are far more powerful than Iran, so we should just take them out now, and then we can deal with the UK. But this goes to my point that America first doesn't mean America only. We have to care about the affairs of the country. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we should invade the United Kingdom. Obviously, we don't want to go to war with one of our great allies right now. But I mean, maybe we could do something, some sort of influence some election. You know, the CIA did a whole bunch of stuff like that in the Latin America in the 50s and 60s, all over the world, you know, preventing communist candidates from taking power. I mean, I'd be all in favor of doing something like that in the UK.
Yeah, I mean,
And
I will
I
say
don't
though,
think that was the point I was trying to
Here, let's
make
hear Lily
necessarily,
first and then Van.
that we should like obviously invade the UK right now. I think it was just trying to make a point of looking more towards the future of what's going to keep happening, because I think we can all agree that eventually we're seeing a radical movement of Islam across the world. So I think I was just trying to make more the point of looking at the great movement and the takeover of Islam. And so, like, obviously, we're not going to invade the UK in the next 10 years.
Tech Boy, I'm gonna quickly say something, and then I think that we should definitely pass on to the next topic, 100%, because I know we're all busy. But what I was gonna say is, I don't think we should necessarily. You cited like 40s, 50s policy, like with the South American countries, like all this stuff like that. I don't think that like Monroe Doctrine policies are necessarily something we should strive for in like full American imperialism. But I do kind of see what you're saying. But I would say that I'd be weary of what you're saying in a way because I think that like some of that ideology was far too extreme and then also in, impossible with modern day society and the current geopolitical landscape. So, but I think Gino probably move to the next topic so we don't keep blabbing forever.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, so on to the next question. So, many critics of U.S. intervention in Iran have made the claim that Israel is benefiting from this operation, or that Israel has somehow dragged us into this conflict for their own good. Now, starting with Wynton, because we haven't heard from him in a little bit, do you agree or disagree with these statements?
I agree with these statements, but not in the way that those sources intended to put them out. Because obviously, we understand that we live in a time, at least politically, from both sides, there's a lot of anti-Israel rhetoric. I think this whole rhetoric that Israel is, somehow controlling the U.S. or that we're fighting the wars is quite inaccurate, right? This war does benefit Israel, but guess who? Guess who it benefits more? It benefits us more. And the reason why I say that is because Israel is essentially America's parking lot in the Middle East. It is our way of navigating freely. It is our way of having military flexibility in the region to plan, to deploy, to improvise. And so, sure, it benefits Israelis. I think it allows them to have the American prowess in their country, but I don't think it benefits them in the way that article or these sources that you mentioned are trying to point it out.
Right. I mean, Israel is an ally of ours. And yes, this obviously does benefit them. They get a power that is threatening them removed. However, this power threatened us as well, so that's why we're getting rid of them. So, I mean, sure, it has the side effect that it's helping Israel. Now, let's also be fair here that Israel is also helping themselves. They're using their military, their fighter jets, to go in there as well. It's not like Israel just sat there and was like, okay, go fight and didn't do anything with us. But this, I mean, yes, it benefits them, but it also benefits the United States. Just like in World War II, defeating the Axis powers benefited, the UK, but it also did benefit the United States. So we can have some shared interest as well. Now, to the second point that Israel dragged us into this war, no. I mean, Israel doesn't tell us what to do. It's just that our interests are aligned in most cases. They are a democracy in the Middle East. They are, like you said, our parking lot, our aircraft carrier in the Middle East. They give us tons of intelligence and data, and they test out our weapons. We're trying to build the Golden Dome here to protect for homebound attacks and using the same kind of data and technology that they use there in the Iron Dome system. So it benefits them, but they didn't drag us into this war.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys are fair. And sorry, Lily, I'll let you get there. But
You can
what
go,
I
Van.
will
You
say,
already started.
uh,
You can go.
I think that you guys are making fair points, but I think that you're a little bit too conservative in the amount that this war impacts Israel. And I think that you shouldn't be afraid to say it because even as a Trump supporter, I think Donald Trump has made it clear that this war is directly an effort helping the Israeli government. And I think that it's an interesting situation. I think that our current land space with media is putting out an agenda stating that Israel and helping them at all is a bad thing. Do I think that the US government has made some mistakes by giving too much money to Israel? Sure, but I think they've also done that in general to many other nations. And I think that what we have to do is this. We have to understand that at the end of the day, we are America first. We want to support our nation. And Israel isn't something that we should be, sacrificing everything for. But at the same time, they're a strategic asset in the Middle East. And that's not only physical, but also socially, as they are the only Western nation in the Middle East. And so our support of Israel is pivotal to the US's success nationwide. Sorry, not nationwide, but globally.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think that we need to be smart with this war because just as what happened in July with our attacks in Iran, we made a ceasefire and then Israel kept going. And, this famous quote that I'm not going to say, but if you remember Trump on the White House lawn saying they don't know what the bleep they're doing. I think that there has been situations where they have went too far, and so I just think we have to be cognizant of that, just like any geopolitical relationship that we have, because at the end of the day, every country is looking out for their own country.
Well, Israel, like many countries, Israel's not perfect, so I don't understand why Trump has a right to be frustrated with countries as he's expressed frustration with many other countries. He's expressed frustration with Italy before, with Japan, with South Korea, with Vietnam, right, with Spain. And so it doesn't mean he hates these countries necessarily, but if they do something stupid, he will call it out. And I think that's a very important quality to have as President of the United States, is not being afraid to call things out as it is. And so Israel has made many mistakes, just like our country. Don't get me
100%.
started on how many mistakes our country, like America alone, has. If we look at a global scale, we've probably made more mistakes than all of the other countries combined. Which I think there's like what 250 plus of them right now. So it's like mistakes are going to be made, but ultimately by the end of the day, there is an objective. There's an agenda to be at play here, and I think that the final objective here is to destroy what causes the root of all our issues. Put it to rest so we don't have to deal with it any longer. We can move on to the next thing. We've been dealing with the Islamic terrorist regime for way too long now. It's time to put this in the grave and to deal with something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that, hey guys, I think we should possibly kind of agree to let Lily speak on this quickly.
Yeah.
And I know that some of us have expressed that they have some commitments. So maybe try to wrap up a little bit and let Lily speak on this because I think her opinion is super pivotal as us three have more similar opinions than she does. So, Lily,
Yeah,
I,
let's hear
I
from
would
Lily.
I would just like to ask you guys because I forget exactly what was said, but someone said something about Israel and our involvement in Israel. I would like to ask if the amount of money that our government is taking from Israel lobbies like APEC and just to name like the major one is playing a role in our involvement in Israel and their wars. If our government wasn't taking the millions and millions and millions of dollars of it would in the money, would we be as involved in Israel? I personally don't think we would be.
um, I don't think we would be either, but I think that it actually doesn't have an effect on this war. You know what? I'm going to say it, and I'm not even saying this is my opinion necessarily, but let's say APAC is 100% manipulating and controlling our politicians. Let's be theoretical here. And you may think that, people may think that. I'm not saying that I think that or not think that in this situation. I'm saying they are in this theoretical situation. Even with that, even with a US government that's sole purpose is to help Israel, I think this war is beneficial for the American people. And I think that Israel is almost irrelevant. I think that it is very important for geopolitical safety and Western culture that this war happens, and I think that it's inevitable, and I think that Israel definitely takes a part in this because it is directly benefiting their safety. But I think that you take Israel out of the equation and you still have to have this war for many other reasons. And so I think that although it is a factor, and it might be a factor that you see as negative, I think you have to look at the whole situation and then make it a decision.
Right.
Uh,
And speaking about APAC, Israel does not fund APAC. It's funded by Americans. You cannot have
yeah, but it's
Americans
Israeli
funded by
nationalists. I mean, you gotta.
other
APEC
parties.
and other
Right.
other lobbies, just to
I mean,
name
you
the
have to be
major ones.
honest,
And
it's
I'm sure a
Israeli
lot of
nationalists.
people know
Right.
that.
But these lobbying groups, these PACs, they would have to register under FARA. They couldn't really do anything with federal elections if they were being funded from another foreign government. Now, the APAC is full of people who might be of Israeli descent. Maybe they immigrated here, but they are all American citizens. So it's not the country itself controlling our politicians. But I mean, let's say that they're all bought and paid by Israel. To Van's point, what they're doing here is a good thing, not the buying and paying for foreign countries, but the strike on Iran. And I don't think that even if, say, APAC didn't exist, or even if, say, hypothetically Israel didn't exist, that this attack would still matter, because I mean they are chanting death to Israel, and then they chant after they destroy Israel, they want to destroy the United States of America, and that is something that they seek to do. It's deeply embedded in the ideology because we are diametrically opposed to them, and so we had to go to war.
Great. Thank you guys all for doing this again. So, final closing thoughts. Anybody want to add anything on to, or make any conclusions out of what you guys discussed over the course of this conversation? Please do that now, and yeah, we can wrap this up.
I mean, I just want to say thank you so much, guys. In the words of Charlie Kirk, when you stop having conversations, that's when real wars start. So having these conversations is so important, and I'm so grateful for having this conversation with you guys and being able to express my views, and for you guys to be able to express your views, because that's the beauty of freedom. Yeah, I'm Van LeMay. My Instagram is at Van the Man LeMay, and you can also follow my journey with Elevate Multimedia, and that's at elevate.watch. And that's going to be amazing too. A lot of familiar faces, maybe even faces that you're looking at right now, are going to be involved in this project. And so, if you want more stories like this, please check out Elevate Multimedia. Yeah, what do you guys? You guys have any closing statements as well?
Yeah, I'm the tech boy here with TTP Media. I produce the Pulse podcast and the Truth with the Tech Boy web show. And, I like to discuss foreign policy with you all a lot on here. And I think that talking about American foreign policy and not just talking about, Israel, I try to, because I know it's very controversial, I try to frame our discussions in cases that benefits America and not only our allies. So I hope that you guys, learn something from this discussion, and I learned some things from you guys as well. So it's been nice talking to you.
I think I'll jump in here as probably the only one here that's kind of against the war. I definitely think this has been a very productive conversation. I'm glad to have had it with you all. I think there's definitely some things I'm going to leave and go do some more research on, because I think that's the point of this, is to learn more about each other's point of views. But I just thank you all for being here. I can't wait to do this again sometime.
Great, Wynton. You have any final thoughts, and we can get this
Sure.
going.
Sure. Great thoughts. Great thoughts, everybody. And to add on to what everybody said, it was a great conversation, and I really appreciate coming with you guys. I know you guys are probably a lot of y'all are on the younger side of things, so I do love to see young people politically involved, and that was my dream. That was a big part of my agenda that I talked about 4 years ago. My dream would be to see a lot of younger people in this generation stand up and express their beliefs as we approach a more decisive world. But to realign myself on the topic of this entire discussion, I want to see an end to this war. But I want us to win this war with grace and with a very firm victory. And I want to see an end to years and years of suffering. Way too many people, way too many Iranians, women and children have died from this war. I have relatives who served missions in Iran who died in this war, and I can't see them anymore, right? I personally was affected by this, and so that's why, as you guys may have seen, I have very strong opinions on this, because I want to see an end to this. I don't want to see any more people die, and that includes my family and service members and other people who are directly involved. And so I am very grateful for a president who is striving to put America first, and he's not perfect. No man on this earth is perfect, but he is better than what we've had for the past 10, 20, 30 years. And so I do wish to see an end to this conflict very soon. And I have full faith that our president, through the grace of God, and our military will be able to do this.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining this panel today, and I thought it was a very productive discussion as your moderator. I'm Gino Falco, and I'm the host of the Right Side Rising podcast, and we're going to continue to have these meaningful and even hard conversations sometimes that many people can't have, because this is all about free speech and open dialogue. So thank you all for joining us today again. For those watching, thank you for tuning into this very lengthy conversation, and again, thank you all for joining us today on this panel discussion.